Hi, I'm Steve from Nearly Wild, and I'm here today with...
Hi, I'm Joe Hope. Welcome to Kevin Corch Farm on a pretty cold but beautifully sunny day.
It is cold. It is a bit cold. I'm still wearing my motorbike gear because it's actually really is quite cold. So Kevin Corch, maybe just tell us where we are, because some people will have no idea, and there's a number of Kevin Corchs around.
There are a lot of Kevin Corchs around, that's true. Yes, so we are Kevin Corch Farm, just above Glasspool, which is 4 miles south of Machynlleth in mid Wales. Although, and we're just about in Ceredigion here because we're over the Llyfnant.
Yes.
So yeah, we're in the Midwest.
Brilliant. And I think we're quite near the Glyndwr's Way as well, aren't we? For those who do long distance footpaths.
Absolutely, we're close to Owen Glyndwr's Way and the Wales Coast Path, which comes inland quite a long way here.
Gosh,
going up the Llyfnant.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, there you are. So if any of you are long distance walkers, you could pass very close by. So, Joe, tell us a little bit about what you've got here, because we're sitting on, well, a really interesting, diverse little, it's halfway between a farm and a small holding, really, isn't it? I mean, it's a bit of a, and I know you've got sort of ideas of things you're developing, but can you just give us a bit of a feel of what we're looking at, where we are?
Absolutely, yeah. So this is where I've landed here is it's 40 acres of farmland and woodland. The farmhouse that you came to earlier on is the farm buildings and sheds and all of what was once a much bigger farm.
Yeah.
In terms of area, and it must have been at some point quite an important farm as well, because our farm is named on a 1824 map of the whole of Ceredigion.
Gosh.
Okay. So, which is, and quite a small map. There's probably only 30 farms marked on it, and as well as all the towns. So I was pretty excited when I found that. So that it's very small for a working farm.
Yeah.
But it's also quite large for a small holding.
Absolutely.
But it has more of a farm feel because of the farm buildings, and I'm looking at it as a farm and trying to work in the direction of making it work viably and financially as a farm as well. So I think of it as a farm.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, in terms of the systems you've got as well, they're very definitely sort of what most people would think of as upland farming systems.
Yeah. That's right. But just everything's on a much smaller scale.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing with the land that's slightly different, because I know you've got some fairly big hairy cattle, which we'll probably get some video of in a bit. Everybody always loves big hairy cattle. And you've also got lots of little experiments, I suppose, that you're doing or developing ideas, but based on some good practical experience and theory. And I'd just sort of be interested to hear a little bit more about that.
Right. Okay. Well, so I'm coming at this, I suppose, from a little bit of an unusual angle in farming. As you know, most farmers are from farming families. Yeah. My family was originally a farming family, but skipped a generation or two. So my background professionally is in ecology. Mm-hmm. I worked in ecology of woodlands mostly, and lichens that grow on trees. So I guess my focus here is with conservation, biodiversity, wildlife, nature, all of these things very much at the forefront of my thinking here, mm-hmm. As well as trying to have a farm that works financially in the end. So I guess I see what are the opportunities I have here and the assets. Well, I've got this background of ecological knowledge and skills, but also this farm is small and it's not my entire income because I'm still working in ecology. So I have an opportunity there to make experiments, if you like, to do things that would be maybe too risky for somebody whose entire family income is the farm.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to see what can be done with these sort of ideas that are coming up as important, potentially important for the future of farming and connecting farming with bringing in terms of other benefits such as nature conservation and public engagement, well-being, tourism, all of these kinds of things.
So what you've got here, I mean, just to give you a little bit more feel of the sort of elements of the farm system that Joe can then expand a little bit on, we're looking at a small farm in the hills, but we've got woodland and quite a lot of trees within the pasture. Now, for those of you who haven't come across it, there's a term called agroforestry, which is the mixing of trees and farming system, very much seeing the trees as part of the farming system. So quite a lot of your emphasis on the land management side is that agroforestry, as I understand. But then alongside that, you've got the garden, which is producing vegetable, and you've got holiday cottages that are producing some income, and then you've got some other people living in the system with you who are bringing in other skills and experiences and so on that help make the whole thing work. So as I understand it, you've kind of got for those people involved in permaculture, I suppose, a stacked income system.
That's it, yes.
In terms of how it all works and a kind of synergy between the elements. Am I getting that right, Joe?
Yeah, I think that's right. And one of my aims for this bit of land and my ongoing relationship with it is to try and increase that synergy. Actually, you know, at the moment we've got things that are conceptually synergistic that I'm trying to make more so. So we have the cottages which have people coming to stay for holidays, and we have my ecology work, and then we've got the farm which is running along agroecological principles. And really I want to bring those things together more and have people staying at the cottages because they're interested in, you know, the agroecology here and the agroforestry, as well as the local nature more, and then bringing in my ecological skills probably more in terms of education and outreach and just showing people what's here. So yeah, I'm looking towards making it a little bit of a hub for people to come and appreciate, learn and experience nature in a farmed landscape.
This is really interesting, Joe, because what you're describing, it's like there's two elements, and I know it's a lot more complicated than that, but somebody going on holiday and staying in a place because it's nice looking at the view, and they can get to the nice places from there.
Yeah.
Or somebody coming and staying in a place for all those reasons, but also getting a much greater level of depth in that experience inside understanding and learning about nature, and you then being able to bring that in to help them get that experience. Is that kind of the direction of travel?
That's absolutely it. Yeah, I think I'm really interested in bringing greater levels of meaning to our lives. Right. I think, and you know, certainly in mine, and definitely coming here is giving a lot of meaning to my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think from a visitor experience, you know, it's good to be able to do more than just enjoy the view.
Yeah.
If you're really if you start to understand what's making the view what it is as well, both in terms of the ecology and the management, I think that you come away with a much deeper experience and a much more meaningful one.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. And for those people as well who maybe want to understand more about some of the things that are going on in upland farming. I mean, there's some wonderful farms around here in mid Wales, and you've probably seen we've already spoken to a couple of other people who farm in the area. And it's great seeing people like yourself and others like David, who was on one of the other interviews. There's a couple of other people that we're talking to at the moment who are really trying to sort of look at the farming system and still farm, but do it in a way that they can get even more benefit for nature, but also this other element of raising people's understanding and awareness that is really becoming an opportunity now. It's like people accept and they need more of that, and it's a value, so it has a market. So now there is a value in able to promote that to other people, because you can then get some income at the same time. Absolutely. And the whole thing then starts to make some sense.
Absolutely. And I think it's really, engaging with people around farming as well as nature. I mean, it comes naturally to me to engage people with nature because I've been doing this for a long time.
Well, maybe nature is farming and farming is nature.
Well,
isn't it?
there is that.
I mean, yeah,
there is that.
yeah.
But I think what's interesting is that a lot of farmers around here that I'm talking to really, and that I'm reading around the whole of the country, feel a little bit like there are some narratives in the media which are giving farmers a bad name.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of farmers are feeling a bit on the back foot, and there are these narratives are there, and I think people are sort of starting to wonder, is farming a good thing? And of course it's far more complicated than being good or bad.
Yep.
But one of the things I see my mission here is hopefully to show people like the diversity of approaches that farming can take, and really show, by showing people the details as well as the kind of bigger picture,
Yeah.
what we can do here. And one thing that I think is particularly pertinent to what I'm doing right here, because we're in this part of Mid Wales is really at the heartland of the rewilding debate.
Right.
This is the area that George Monbiot lived when he wrote his book Feral.
Absolutely.
And it's led to a massive controversy. And if you drive past Machynlleth to get to the farm here, you'll see the sign that says conservation yes, rewilding no, right on the roadside.
Yep.
Making a big statement. And what I'm trying to do on the farm here is to see if we can get some of the benefits that the rewilding proponents are trying to bring about, but maintaining a working connection to the landscape and a cultural connection to the landscape to keep that going.
Yeah.
Rather than the sort of what I have no interest in at all is the kind of the blank sheet style of rewilding, which says that this is all degraded and we just need to start again.
Yeah.
I think that's a very misguided view. But I do think there's room for different approaches to land management all over the country.
Yeah.
But what I'm looking at is this idea of nature-friendly farming, agroecology, trying to get those benefits, but trying to show that you don't have to abandon the land to disconnect the people from the land in order to get those benefits.
Very interesting, yeah. And for those of you who haven't seen on our training program, the Nearly Wild Masterclasses, we actually go into some of these sorts of issues, interestingly, in a lot more detail. So I might have to try and get Joe to come along and do a guest lecture. But one of the phrases I often use is people in or people out. And I think we have to think in terms of, people are in, people are part of nature, and how we've lived and worked the land is an important part of the whole process. I'm wearing wool jumper, wool hat, goodness knows what else from natural fibres. So, the farming system is important, and we can't come in with whatever the latest new idea is and just sweep everything else out.
Absolutely.
And I've got lots of friends, as you have, in the area. We've talked a lot about these sorts of issues, and there is a real concern that there's a misunderstanding of the complexity of how our natural world and people as part of that have interrelated over many, many generations, centuries, even thousands of years. So, really interesting, Joe. What I'm going to ask is one final question, and then I'd love to go and have a look around, and we've got to take a picture of a hairy cow.
Oh, we've got to.
Yeah. But the final bit is this idea of how you have chosen the style of nature-friendly business that you run, because one of the things people often say to me is, what's a nature-friendly business? And they've got they've got in their mind that you do one thing. I get up in the morning and I make this product and I sell it here, and that's my business. And actually what you're describing is a lifestyle business.
Sure.
And it's complex, and there's lots of elements in there. How does it work? I mean, do you feel, Does it come together, or does it just feel like, oh my God, I've got to get up and I've got so many jobs to do?
It can certainly feel like that sometimes, and I do have a lot of jobs to do. But yeah, how does it work? How do I see this as, how did I get into this nature-friendly business, and how did I choose the nature of it? I think that, okay, so how did I choose the nature of how did I choose how it would work? That's an interesting one, because really I tried to be guided by the place on that.
Right.
I came here because I wanted to get involved in a land project. Having worked in ecology for all of my professional life, I then decided I wanted to get my hands dirty and get involved.
Yep.
And I wanted a land project, and I knew I wanted to be near Machynlleth because I had good friends here, and I felt a sense of kinship, I suppose,
Yep.
with the community here. I just love it. The landscape is absolutely gorgeous. We're close to the sea and the mountains.
Yep.
You know, it really seemed like the place. And so when I saw that this place was for sale, it was like it's in exactly the right place and it's beautiful. So I came here,
Yep.
and then it took me a good 2 years to decide how I was going to take it forward as a
Right.
business.
Right.
And some of the ideas that I'm running with now came to me right at the beginning.
Yep.
But for me, it was important to take things slowly, and to sort of feel into the land, to feel what's here in terms of the natural capital, if you like, to understand, a bit, and it's a continuing learning process. Understand a bit the ecology and the history and the cultural history, as well as the natural history.
That's really interesting. So just something, because I know you've also got a lot of local farming friends and others who you've been getting understanding and learning from, and you make a real effort with that. And I know from the conversations we were having earlier how important you see that in that building that genuine understanding of how the ecological system works. And I think that there's something really important for somebody who may be coming in to thinking about setting up some sort of new business, and particularly a nature-friendly business, in what you're saying, which is not thinking that you've got all the answers at the beginning.
Yes, absolutely.
Because as with any business, it's this kind of development, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if you're doing it then with natural world, it's even more complex, because you've got the seasons, you've got the natural complexity and everything else. So I applaud the way that you've done that.
Thank you.
And it's really interesting to hear that has actually, for you, been a valuable part of the business model.
I think it has. I think if you're building a business around nature, then you have to work with nature, don't you?
Yep.
It's no good, or you're going to be working uphill if you try and impose your preconceived idea onto the land, because the land sort of has its own ideas in a sense. And you've got to figure out what those are, what its natural creativity wants to bring. That's how I see it. So yeah, I'm definitely see myself as right at the beginning of a journey here, where learning and appreciating is going to be, and making mistakes and learning from them and changing course are all part of the journey.
No, it's absolutely fascinating. Well, I've really enjoyed that discussion, Joe. And obviously I'll put more information and links at the end of the video in the descriptions. But what I am going to do now is ask Joe to go and show us these hairy cattle. And we'll also get a couple of, give you a bit of a feel of the site as we're walking around. I'll try my best to do it with my poor video skills, but we'll see where we get to. And thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, Joe, show us these cows.
Okay, Steve, well, you wanted to see the cows, so here they are. And we can see, so there's 2 cows and their calves here. So The black cow is Millie, and the red cow is Missy, and they've got their two calves, Bunken and Bimpy. The darker calf belongs to the darker cow, and these are Highland cattle.
Right.
So they're adapted for living in the Highlands of Scotland, and they're very hardy. They're quite happy to be out all winter, and they do well on quite rough forage. So they're quite happy on this sort of old grass here, permanent pasture. Doesn't get any fertilizer or lime or anything. It's not as highly nutritious as a seeded lay or whatever, but these cattle do well on it. They're very beautiful cattle, I think, and so in terms of a nature-based business, you know, they're adding an attraction, because people love to see Highland cattle, and they're also, another plus point is that they have a very lovely temperament. They're very calm and beautiful. They have other interesting things as well. They're the oldest breed in the world, the oldest recorded breed of cattle in the world, and genetically speaking, they have the closest affinities with the ancient aurochs of temperate Europe. So they're the closest thing that we have to wild cattle in genetic terms. And because they've been relatively little changed, actually, and since they were, you know, very barely domesticated cattle living in quite a wild landscape, they behave more like a wild animal than most of our domestic cattle, apart from, and this is the key thing, their temperament is not at all wild, and I can show you that. If we go over. This is Missy here, and as you can see, she is a gentle giant. Aren't you? Aren't you, love? Yeah.
Lovely animal.
Isn't she lovely? And I get a great sense of calm sometimes from just coming up here and sitting with the cows, especially when they're lying down. It just makes everything feel very calm. There we go. There we go.
Lovely. Well, while we're up here, Joe, do you want to just point out a few of the other features on the farm? Because
yeah,
I know
for
we
sure.
can see a bit from here. We're looking into the sun a little bit, but we'll do the best we can.
That's right. So here we can see one of the old hedge lines going down, and then we can just see the top of the farm here.
Yep.
And my neighbour's shed with the black bales of silage.
Yes.
Then below that you can see the cottages.
Yep.
Which self-catering accommodation, two cottages there, and then mostly in shadow now. You can see the lights catching on the twigs of birch from my woodlandy bit, which is going to be, I'm letting that regenerate, and at a certain point I'm going to put the cattle in there as well, so that's going to become a denser piece of agroforestry. And above that we have my neighbour's land, farmland, and then above there we have the land belonging, it's owned by Woodland Trust and managed as Coitia Anian, for the Cambrian wildwood. And you might be able to see the horses up there, the conic horses, which are grazing that land.
Yes.
And then their new shed up there. And
Very smart shed.
Very smart shed, indeed. And then the pen, and then down the valley into the semi-natural woodlands with the forestry behind, and then over to the mountains on the north side of the Dyfi. And just on the other side there is Cadair Idris. We can't quite see it. If we went up to that knoll, we'd be able to see Cadair Idris.
Wonderful. What a lovely view. Thanks very much, Joe.
No problem.